I'm Tracy Swedlow, and this is Radio ITVT. Today I interview Mike Gaston, the CEO of Cutcom, an innovative production company located in Seattle. This is part one of two. Mike speaks about building digital content brands for the future, his personal goals, his mission to empathize, the fact that his brands get hundreds of millions and billions of views on various social media platforms, whether storytelling will go away or not, and his own personal heroes, as well as monetization, investment, censorship, algorithms, and why the content he makes goes viral and what they are doing to make new content go viral. I hope you'll enjoy it. And why you are profitable, right? That's what sort of kicked off the interest. But just because you're leading these sessions, I think, damn it, yeah, we should do a podcast so people understand the complexity and the depth of what you're up to.
Oh,
right?
Thank you. Yeah, and I really appreciate that. I think where we see ourselves as different from other companies is that, I guess the line in our deck would say that we are, attempting to create the home of the next generation of like premium entertainment brands for the emerging mainstream, right? So for us, we believe that there's a digital analog for every kind of traditional or legacy media brand / vertical that exists today, and that we think that we can build those brands that are going to be meaningful to people in the future. And whereas other companies maybe start off as text-based and then are kind of exploring and really leveraging video, like we've always been video. That's us. And so for us, everything is a video-first kind of attack. So
what are your overall goals? Other than building a digital suite of networks, mm-hmm. what are your sort of personal goals? All of your content, and we can go through that, is so socially meaningful, mm-hmm. And asking important questions, not providing content in the normal sense, like a story, with a beginning, middle, and end. So tell me about your concept for your suite of networks before we go into exactly what all those different sort of brands are about.
Are you familiar at all with the work of a writer named Keith Oatley?
No.
So Keith Oatley is this. I think he's a professor in Toronto, and he wrote this essay that had a profound impact on me called "Fiction as Cognitive Emotional Simulation." And in it, he talks about how if you hear things logically delivered to you, it activates the Wernicke and the Broca's areas of your brain that decode language. But when you hear something as a narrative, it lights up all these other sectors of your brain. And for him, that's analogous to like a computer simulation, and that what you're experiencing then are new emotional states, or states that you would never have experienced had you not otherwise heard this story or engaged with this kind of story. So, and he says what's powerful about that is that essentially increases theory of mind, which is this idea that I don't know what you're thinking at any given time. I barely understand what I'm thinking at any given time. But if we can increase theory of mind, then we might be able to get a better understanding of the whys behind the things that people do, and that increasing understanding actually leads to profound things like empathy. And so that's kind of what my goal is. I know when we were first going around talking to people, that show Newsroom was on the air, and the character of Will McAvoy was constantly talking about being on a mission to civilize. And I would say that I'm on a mission to empathize, and that for me, we have this incredible technology that allows us to be connected to people all over the world instantaneously. And yet at the same time, we've developed these bubbles that prevent us from really engaging with each other in a way that's meaningful. And how, to me, the most powerful types of stories are the ones that have the kind of impact that shifts one's perspective. And so my goal has always been to create the kind of content that doesn't necessarily prescribe, tell people what to think or to pander, but really just to if anything, like make people comfortable with complicated things and reintroduce ambiguity, and then hopefully out of that create some kind of empathy. So yeah, that is underlying just about everything that we go to create. I mean, everything as silly as a truth or drink episode to something as serious as, Black men responding to the word police, or Black parents explaining to their kids how to deal with police, or like to me, there's a giant range of human experience that can touch on that stuff, and that's all we want to do is kind of play in it.
It's interesting that you say empathy, and that you want to communicate to the world about what we are all like, right? To find those sort of common experiences or knowledge through those revelations. I always go back to one of my heroes, Philo Farnsworth, who invented television, and his initial goal, electronic television rather, but his initial goal was to create a device that would allow people to understand how each other lived around the world, because he felt that once we knew how each other lived, the ways we live, the ways we think, like what I think you're doing, that we would find ways to get along. We would have less war. And I'm not quite sure. I mean, that all of this sort of storytelling and the action adventure and the all those movies with lots of killing are really, or TV shows with lots of killing are really helping us. But I'm just wondering aloud, if he were alive, wouldn't he just love what you're doing? And that would have been a fuller realization of his dream. He was so frustrated by the emergence of wrestling and all of these kinds of things at the time in the 50s and 60s. There were some things that were good, but the thing that made him feel that his television invention had been all worth it was when he and his wife Pam watched the landing on the moon. Right? It was an experience that was shared, and it was his television technology that allowed all of us to see that. Anyway, so that was just a little interjection of mine. So you are creating an empathy network, right? Or a suite of brands that try to do that. Why don't we? I want to talk about what each of those brands are, because you mentioned a few of the shows within those brands. But before that, actually, I know that you don't necessarily want to create a traditional TV network. Do you think that that we will all migrate to television that's like this eventually? This is what people will want, or do you see this just amongst the cornucopia of offerings? I mean, I'm assuming you don't think that storytelling, like a series, binge watching, Twin Peaks ad infinitum, is ever going to go away, or do you?
No, I definitely don't. I think what's happening is that we are in this space where, one of the things I tell my team is that we are, on the vanguard of a new type of storytelling, right? And up to this point, it's been pretty lowest common denominator stuff. And it's because people haven't seen there being a real value in investing in this kind of storytelling for a very long time. I think that, from my perspective, that there is tremendous value in this kind of storytelling, and so I want to, be one of the people who's inventing the new kind of vocabulary for it. I don't feel like it's going to replace movies or television at all. I feel like it's just going to be on the shelf, another medium in which to explore really interesting narratives. And so, like, for me, it's a what is that actually going to look like? What are these new types of storytellings going to be shaped like? But going back to what you were saying, I think about the inventor of television. For me, like, my heroes are people like Studs Terkel and Svetlana Alexievich, and I think that there's tremendous power in creating a space wherein people can start to see themselves parsed against everybody else, in the sense that I feel like we live in a very turbulent time. There's more technology is advancing at such a rapid rate. There are more human beings living on this planet than ever before. Our access to each other is greater than it's ever been before. And so there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that kind of like change. And so what you get is a lot of people who are desperate for that change to slow down or stop or even reverse. And I think that's where you get the kind of language that says things like, let's make America great again, right? Like this fear of moving forward. So let's kind of go backward a little bit. And what I want to do with my work is to provide almost a crow's nest for people to look to, in this kind of like upheaval in this storm, and be able to go, okay, these are ways that we are all very similar. These are all ways that we are very different. But it's okay. It's okay. Cut doesn't have to simplify things for me to feel safer. All they had to do was just show me some stuff that other people are thinking or feeling. And I'm okay now with experiencing this complication the way that they've presented it, versus what I think, what I see in a lot of other content, which is a little bit of an attempt to simplify really complicated things. So for us, it's about kind of luxuriating in the ambiguity of life versus the attempt to have like a solid answer for everything all the time.
And we'll talk about whether that's monetizable in a minute. But let's go through some of the brands that you are offering, just a sort of brand sort of identity around which or inside which you create shows for those brands. And I want to say, by the way, I watch your stuff, and one thing I notice, for example, when you do those close-up pieces where people just talk directly into the camera, like One Word I was watching, like you said, you show the complexity and yet all the different opinions about one particular idea, but it's really about the beauty of each individual face, the beauty of humanity. And that's the one word that came into my mind, was just that you're providing that sense of how beautiful human beings are, even though they have so many different opinions. Anyway.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so your different brands are, I guess, Cut would be called one, and on the screen here you have like 12 different shows, I would say, that you've produced. Is that, maybe there are more than that?
Yeah, there's a bunch. There's some that we've kind of tabled for now, others that are kind of busier than others, and they range from some very adult humor to the things that are more politically focused, like our Dirty Days.
Okay, wait. Let's go into that in a second. I just want to name the brands super quickly. But Cut, something called Hi Ho, which are about kids discovering the world, right? This Matters, which is very about, I guess, difficult political and social issues, and then 100 Years of Beauty. So which of these brands are the most active, and which are your shows that you're working on right now?
Sure. I would say Cut and Hi Ho are the ones that are the most active, where we actually have committed resources to producing regular content for both of those on a daily basis. This Matters was a attempt to kind of see what kind of voice we could have in the political space. And we love it and we want to keep doing it, but we actually need some resources to be able to go at that harder. Like right now, it doesn't have a dedicated team. And then let's see here, 100 Years of Beauty, it's the same kind of thing where, we have we have a very clear vision for what we want to make. We just don't have enough people or resources to really go after that yet. So right now it's really just Cut and Hi Ho.
Okay, so before we go into what those brands offer, tell me a little bit of background quickly. How big is your team? How are you funded? I know we discussed a couple of days ago that you are now profitable, but so how did you come up with this team? Did you have money to begin with?
Sure.
Just so we have a little bit of context to then talk about why these shows are able to get done.
So the company was started between me and two other fellas, my co-founders, back at the very end of 2014. I think it was November of 2014. At the time, we were a creative, like a small creative agency in Seattle, and Cut was an experiment of ours. It was like, what would happen if we created our own content around our own editorial vision versus attempting to do commercial work against a different brand. And since then, we've grown to about a team of a little over 20 people that are full-time. And the way we did that was I want to say a couple months into 2015, we were able to raise a seed round for Cut from Stripes 39, which is a Seattle startup studio. And then at the end of 2015, the very beginning of 2016, we closed on our Series A from Comcast Ventures and Gunpowder and Sky. And then I want to say as of a few months ago, we had become net profitable just off of programmatic advertising. So just off the ads that are being placed on our YouTube and Facebook videos.
That's incredible. So, and Gunpowder and Sky, et cetera, they're still investors, correct? I mean, they're okay.
They're on the board.
So you're, I'm sort of doing this sort of weaving type of interview. So we'll talk about distribution and things like that in a minute. So let's go back into the content itself within the brands called Cut and Hi Ho. So how many shows do you have in Cut? Did I count that right? 12, or are there more?
Oh man, there's probably much more, but 12 sounds pretty right as far as active formats.
So Strange Buds.
Yep.
Tell me if these shows are still going. Strange Buds, which is grandma smoking weed.
Yes, that's
for the first time. Truth or Drink.
Yep.
Keep It 100.
Yep.
Fear Pong.
Yep.
Parents Explain.
Yep.
That's pretty intense. Around the World.
Yep.
One Word.
No.
Dirty Data.
Yes.
On Killing.
Yes.
That's pretty intense. You got a lot of views on that one. Line Up.
Yes.
Would You Rather.
Yes.
How to Human.
No.
Those are the ones that are on here. No. Okay. So out of all of those particular shows, which one, tell me a little bit about them, or which ones you're most proud of? Are you, or I mean, there's so many different ways to go about that. Which ones have been most successful?
I would say that
maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, there's success is a key, factor, but on the other hand, maybe success for you or how a show does just for views is not as important to you. I don't know. Tell me a little bit about these shows.
I think, when I measure success, I'm thinking about it in terms of like what enhances the brand, what actually leads to more views and or subscribers, and what does well as far as like providing some sort of return on investment in terms of money, right? Like the sweet spot is something that hits the center of that Venn diagram. But as far as like the most satisfying, personally satisfying, I would have to say the Parents Explain one. We've done a few different Parents Explain that I think have had a big impact on me and the people I know. One of them I mentioned before, which was Black Parents Explain how to deal with the police to their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one that I absolutely love is the On Killing series. In particular, the piece that we did with a soldier named, Josh. So we did one with a soldier named Lonnie, who was a Vietnam vet, and one with a soldier named Josh, who was in Iraq. And
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the two of them juxtaposed against each other, you're really seeing like a real difference in their experiences of war and their experiences of killing. And I think the reason why I like the Josh piece in particular is because of how incredibly real and honest he was being, to the point of being really unlikable, right? And when we do any video, we make sure that these are not gotcha interviews, right? Like we don't want anyone to have done a video with us and then regretted it after they did it. So, after this one, we went and spoke to Josh and we were like, Josh, look at this video. These are the things that you said. Are you comfortable with this going out? And he was really blown away by how candid he had been and how, how like I guess, unlikable he had presented himself. But I think the reason why he went forward with letting us do it is because he, at the same time, it was also incredibly honest. These are not, he wasn't putting on some kind of performance for us. And so when I look at that, I'm like, what I love is that often when we say thank you to soldiers for their service, what we fail to do is really internalize what it means when we say that. What are we really thanking them for, right? And then when you watch Lonnie tell his story and the impact it had on him being a soldier in Vietnam, and then you see Josh's story and what he went through as a soldier in Iraq and what it means to kill people. These are the things that you're thanking them for, right? The things that have a profound impact on the way they live their life into the future. And so, yeah, I would say like that's my favorite by far, even though it's probably it's not one of our most successful pieces, although it did really well in terms of views and engagement.
I think the series got 2.5 million views. Is that correct, or is that just for one?
Well, I think they did much better on Facebook. So I think all those videos did a little over 1 million views on Facebook. And then on YouTube, I think collectively they did more than 2 million views.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube right now. It says like 2,000,008.
Yeah.
77,169. I think that's for the series.
Yeah. They definitely did better on Facebook.
I'm surprised. I'm just, curious with all that's going on with censoring content and whatnot. If you're being affected, like in a series like that, that's pretty, tough stuff. That's tough conversation. Are these networks censoring you in any way? Are you experiencing that
I haven't. I mean, I would say that the stuff that tends to get censored is anything related to weed. So, like
what? To what?
To cannabis. So, like
weed.
Our Strange Bud series, it'll do really well, and then it'll get reported multiple times, and then inevitably you'll get hit with like one of those restrictions on it. So that way people have to click a button to allow them to watch it. And when that happens, like the spread grinds to a halt. And that's true for both YouTube and Facebook. But despite that, they still do really well. But I haven't really noticed any, real change in terms of censorship or blocking of our videos. If anything, what I've seen is for this past year, almost every month has been the best month we've ever had.
Do you think that the algorithms that are out there are somehow helping you, or have you somehow figured out, some way to, to buffet that, or do you think it's just the sharing that's going on? It's people sharing with friends.
I think that's a good question. I don't want to sound, arrogant, but I think but I'm going to.
Just tell it like it is.
Sure. So,
Michael, you're being interviewed.
What I've noticed when I go out and I talk to people at different media companies is that they're all enamored with the idea of creating algorithms that help them to predict what is going to be viral next, right? Like that's their interest, is creating technology that helps them to kind of like discover trends and be like, this is going to be the next thing, and then like try to make it. For us, our technology, the thing that I think we're most serious about developing, is one that cultivates ideas, creators, and audiences that decide what goes viral next. It's the difference between trying to make something that's innovative and something that's kind of inspired from mimetic desire, right? Like we want to be the tastemakers. So it's not about what will be viral next. It's like we make things that are going to be the next thing. So that's and the reason why I don't think we suffer as much as these other companies is that means that we're not optimizing against algorithms. What we're doing is we're creating content for people, right? And those algorithms that exist for Facebook and YouTube and Google are about getting to a point where they're providing better and better value to audiences. So if your whole technology is about creating value for audiences, then I don't think you're going to be hurt when those algorithms change, right? Like if anything, your stuff should only surface more if that's what you're optimizing for. So
Well,
that's the difference.
you're trying to create the zeitgeist, right? You're trying
Yeah,
to you're creating ideas rather than technology.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, when people talk about technology, they're usually reducing it to software or hardware, right? To like, packageable widgets. But the truth is, technology is techniques and skills, rubrics, methods, processes that are all used in the service of creating kind of products or goods or services, right? So we have a technology. It's just not. It's not like a plugin, and it's the way that we bring in creators, and it's our process for actually developing ideas and for determining how to launch them and all that kind of stuff. And that's hard for people to kind of wrap their heads around, because what they really want to do is go, okay, well, you're making a widget, and if I just give you more money, then you can create more factory lines for this widget. But when it comes to content, that's not a recipe for like success. Like if your goal is to create best practices for content, all you're doing is you're deciding that the best has already been made. And so now all I have to do is keep making the same thing over and over again. And what we're trying to do is be innovative. And that means, what is the thing that people aren't making yet? What is the thing that is really, I want to see, that's new?
Watching television, watching television. Watching television, watching television. All right now. Woo! Ah! Who knows who it is? Oh no! Newtown Radio, and all our brothers out there and sisters.